Bags are packed, the wheels are up, and we're off to Lexington! Welcome to the perfect trip. The pitch to go to Keeneland is a pretty easy one. Frankly, they offer some of the best racing in the world at a legacy landmark track. The pitch is very simple. But what makes Keeneland fit for royalty is Lexington. At every turn, you're going to find something majestic. It's got the best bourbon in the world, sneaky great music scene, and just take a look at this. Yeah, the food is phenomenal. Not to mention, your favorite horse probably took its very first steps right here in central Kentucky. The coolest part about all of this, though, is you don't need to have as many gold coins as the Queen to have a stellar time. So in this episode, we'll help you navigate the perfect trip with not much money. Every single experience that we do in our trip was less than $70 combined. That's $70 total. Not bad for a bucket list trip. That'll cost you less than an afternoon at the movies. Not bad. To kick our trip off, we dropped our bags and got right to the track. Cards on the table, we could do 10 videos just at Keeneland. It's the drinks, it's the food, it's the culture. It's like this place was built in a lab for horse racing fans. Horse players, owners, jockeys, fans. Everyone here is just giddy. It's a real vibe. When you walk through, though, it's really hard to describe why you feel that way. So, you know what? I'm going to tap out since it's my first time here and bring in a ringer. Bailey Armour, she's our gal. She works for First Bet and has hit some of the best racetracks in the country. Bailey loved this place so much, she packed up her life in the South and moved here. So we kick it off with Bailey. Bailey, what is it about this place?
There really is no other place like Keeneland. If you look around, look at the atmosphere, look at the people, everyone is so excited to be here. It's a beautiful environment. The weather could be a little bit better today, but it's usually pretty good. This place has such a storied history, and the quality of racing here is unlike any other.
When the starting gates pop open on a Saturday, it's a celebration. But the beginning of the party often starts at farms in central Kentucky. The region is home to dozens of farms, and the history of American racing lives right here. When you go to Kentucky, you need to make it a priority to stop at a farm.
Hello, Headley Bell. Welcome to Millridge. Come on in.
For 6 generations, Headley Bell's family has helped grow the sport of horse racing, breeding dozens of Grade 1 winners, 2 horses of the year, and the 2005 Kentucky Derby winner, Giacomo. They're such a pillar of the horse racing community. When Her Majesty came to central Kentucky, she made it a priority to stop right here at Millridge. When Headley gave us a tour of his office, it really felt like we were walking in a wing of the Horse Racing Hall of Fame. He's truly horse racing royalty, as both his mom and grandfather are both in that Hall of Fame. We keep hitting this point over and over again because he's done a lot for the game. But if you ask him what he's most proud of, his work with horse racing tourism in Kentucky would top the list.
I've been fulfilled in my life, and this is probably the most fulfilling. And I bet if you ask my grandfather or mom and all of her accomplishments in building out the industry, my grandfather would say Keeneland, and mom would say all of it, that she did. So this is when you can share this, that's the fulfillment.
Headley and the crew at Millridge helped start a nonprofit called Horse Country in 2014. Their mission is to connect fans like you and me to the horses, the land, and people of the equine industry through immersive experiences like these tours. Since then, they've grown and grown. Each year, roughly 10,000 people visit Millridge. A visit to a farm like Millridge is a must-do for any horse racing fan. It truly gives you an appreciation for all of the work that goes into a horse before they even start training at the track. Before we left, we had to stop and see this guy, Oscar Performance. Give him a couple carrots, he's won me some money. Listen, make this a stop for your trip to Keeneland. Tours with Horse Country start at just $25, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a better horse racing experience for that. Going to Lexington, you kind of expect to see some really cool horse racing related things. But what really surprised the crew was the food and bar scene. All throughout the city, you can find hidden gems with great drinks and better food. There are not many places around where you can get maybe the best glass of bourbon you've ever had and throw a couple quarters in your favorite arcade machine. But one item from Lexington has us already planning our trip back. Prepare yourself. The best slice of brisket in Lexington is at the Blue Door Smokehouse. Veteran Jeff Newman opened his tiny barbecue place about a decade ago in Lexington. Since then, it's been nonstop for him. Each year, they make about 70,000 pounds of this smoky, tender goodness. Because of the popularity of Jeff's meat, he needed to open a bigger shop, and that's where we're at today, giving you a sneak peek. As a guy just getting into smoking, I was curious how I could replicate this magical brisket, steal it, put my name on it, and build an empire. Luckily for us, Jeff wasn't worried about my ability to do that and still gave us a master class in how to make his brisket. We got there early and started by trimming off as much fat as we could. You want it as uniform as possible all the way around, same size fat cap from end to end. If you're worried about cutting off too much fat, don't worry about it. Jeff takes that fat and uses it to make a beef tallow, which is great for frying things like French fries. Next is maybe the most important part, so we'll pause so you can go grab a pen and write this down. Seasoning. Season it with just salt and pepper. That's it. Heavy dose of salt, heavy dose of pepper. Throw it in the smoker at 225 with some oak wood, very important. Go watch some racing, come back in 13 hours, and this is what you get. It's amazing what happens when you just get out of the way and keep it simple. Salt, pepper, oak wood. The meat has just enough smoke, and the salt and pepper don't get in the way at all. They complement it perfectly. And a pro tip, if you want to add some sauce, just don't. This cut is perfect. No notes. Now we go to a new segment here on The Perfect Trip. We call it The Perfect Plate. Jeff, what do you got?
A perfect plate for me is going to be brisket 100% of the time. If you want to add another meat, maybe go pulled pork or ribs, and then do a side of potato salad and a side of beans. I think they're perfect together.
A brisket plate will set you back just $16. Honestly, I need to call Jeff right now and tell him to raise his prices because we're stealing from him at this price point. Another pro tip, get there early. Each day they make 25 briskets, but they sell out fast. Doors open at 11. One of the biggest pieces of advice I give to people traveling for the first time is don't overthink it. It's okay to be a tourist. If a place is known for something, do it because you never know when you're going to make it back. And what's the point of missing out? That said, when you're in Kentucky, you got to tour a bourbon distillery. Before we left the Bluegrass State, we needed to make a visit to a pillar of that bourbon community, not only here in the States, but around the world, Woodford Reserve. For more than 20 years, Woodford has helped shape and grow the spirit. It's truly a leader in the industry. If you've had just a sip of it, you know that it's smooth, complex, and rich. And a driving force behind that growth and flavor profile is Chris Morris, and he's been there since the very beginning. He currently serves as the master distiller, and luckily for our crew, he was free to give us a tour. Just a heads up, we're going to show you some really cool behind-the-scenes stuff. But don't worry that you need a fancy film crew to get the same access as we did. You can do the same thing by just going on a regular tour, and that's only going to set you back $30. When you hit the grounds, you're instantly transported to the 1800s. These buildings are the same ones you'd find in the hills of Scotland or in Ireland. The campus was built in 1812 and is actually a National Historic Landmark. As Chris walked us around, he really emphasized that every detail, no matter how small, had been meticulously curated. Each choice they made adds a flavor note to the whiskey. One of the bigger choices they made, though, was to stick with the classic pot stills.
After Prohibition, as the distillery reopened, the owners converted it into a continuous distillation operation because that's how the industry was going. Pot stills were abandoned by the American industry. And you'll see the superstructure rise, the wood structure covered with corrugated iron. And the distillery closed in 1959. All that equipment was removed. This was an empty shell. And we came back in the early 1990s to create a new to world bourbon, Woodford Reserve. And what did we do? Brought pot stills back. We brought pot stills back to distilling in America, back to Kentucky, and we brought the Irish style of distilling. We are the first distillery in the history of the United States to triple distill our whiskey.
We had an absolute blast checking out the campus. Chris even spoiled us by letting us thief a little Baccarat from a cognac barrel, but don't tell anyone, please. Like much of our trip, we could do a series right here and not go anywhere, but we got to keep it moving. And one thing you can't miss, though, is we did a rapid-fire best bourbon pairing with Chris. It was truly a masterclass in which type of bourbon works best for common drinks like a Manhattan or a mint julep. You can find that on the podcast version of The Perfect Trip. Think about it as the extended cut of the show, but in audio form. We have longer discussions with all the guests, and PTF even makes an appearance to help us kick things off. Thanks for listening, watching, and supporting our project. Do us a favor, though, before you go. Rate, review, and subscribe. If we miss something to do or eat in Lexington, add in the comments so if people are going, they can check it out. Also, what track should we hit next? Throw that in the comments, too. Thanks to everyone in the video for helping us out. We couldn't have done it without you. Until we see you at the track next time, from the Perfect Trip crew, cheers, and thanks for watching.